You stand in the grocery aisle and see it, a quiet rectangle wrapped in plastic, chilled and steady on the shelf. People point, they joke, they make a face, tofu. It has been treated like a punchline for years, a bland block, a substitute you hear about before you taste it. But if you look closer, tofu isn't a trend or a statement. It began as a solution. Thousands of years ago, someone figured out that soybeans, water, and time could become something else entirely. No marketing team sat in a room with mood boards. There was no ideology attached, no intention to replace anything. It was practicality, a way to preserve nutrition and stretch resources. Quiet, reliable food, born from necessity. Think of that as the starting point. Not a fad, not a declaration, just a way to feed people. For centuries, tofu was just food. It showed up in stews, temples, markets, part of life. Then modern food culture shifted. Meat started to get wrapped in ideas about strength, status, identity. And foods that didn't fit that story slowly picked up meanings beyond flavor. When vegans began to eat tofu openly, the association stuck. Not because tofu changed, but because the story around it did. Tofu stopped being judged by taste and started being judged by who chose it. But when you actually taste tofu, prepared with attention, it's less about imitation and more about possibility. Vegans don't choose tofu because it tastes like meat. Often they choose it because it doesn't. That sounds odd at first. Why pick something precisely because it's not trying to be something else? Because tofu adapts. It absorbs flavor. It doesn't demand attention, but it offers structure. Imagine 3 different plates. On one, cubes of tofu tossed in cornstarch and fried until their edges rattle like tiny chips in your bowl, crunchy, golden, each bite a crackle. On another, tofu blended into a sauce until it's silky and unctuous, folding into pasta with the sort of creaminess you'd expect from dairy but lighter, smoother. On a grill, you get firm slabs that hold their shape, pick up smoke and sizzle. Crispy, creamy, firm, tofu takes shape to suit the mood. The protein argument follows like clockwork. People mock tofu for protein, or for the perceived lack of it. Quietly, though, it delivers. Not aggressively, not loudly, but consistently. It isn't about chasing the highest number on a nutrition label. For many who choose plant-based food, balance matters more than excess. Enough nutrition, without heaviness, without cholesterol, without the kind of saturated fat that clogs more than it fuels. Tofu offers reliable protein, and it does it without meaning to be dramatic. It's dependable. Food is personal. That's an understatement when it comes to tofu. The mockery aimed at it is rarely about flavor or texture alone. Often it's about what tofu represents: change, questioning tradition, stepping outside the familiar idea of what counts as a real meal. When someone pokes fun, sometimes it's because they're protecting an identity, not because tofu itself is threatening, but because food habits carry a sense of permanence. A steak at the center of a plate can feel like a promise of continuity. Tofu unsettles that promise, and people use jokes as a quick defense. But consider this: expectations steer taste. Take blind taste tests, for example. When tofu is prepared well, seasoned, textured, cooked with intention, it stops being tofu and starts being food. Crisp bites, savory stir-fries, comfort dishes that hug you after a long day. Most people, left to their senses and freed from preconceptions, don't dislike tofu. They dislike the idea of it. This is where the misunderstanding gets interesting. Tofu isn't competing with anything. It isn't out to replace steak, chicken, or a beloved family recipe. It isn't asking anyone to give something up. It exists alongside other foods, quietly helping meals sing. For vegans, tofu isn't a tool of erasure. It's a tool of inclusion. It fits into cuisines without elbowing anyone out of the way. It adapts without demanding that you change your whole life. Why has tofu outlasted trends? Diets tumble through headlines. One rises, another falls. Tofu remains because it doesn't rely on hype. It doesn't need rebranding. It doesn't ask for loyalty pledges. It keeps doing what it's always done, offering a blank canvas that can be painted in thousands of ways. In a world swinging between extremes, tofu stays calm. It doesn't shout, it waits. And for many vegans and people who cook with plant-based ingredients, tofu eventually stops being exciting because it becomes familiar. Familiarity doesn't mean boredom. It means reliability. It represents flexibility and the slow accretion of skill. Learning to cook with tofu forces a kind of patience. learning how to press it to change texture, learning how to marinate so it absorbs, learning how to finish it with a sear that gives you contrast. Those are small rituals that quietly change how you cook without shortcuts. Consistency, not perfection, is what sustains dietary change. Let's give a few quick sensory examples. Imagine pressing a slab of tofu between two plates with a weight on top. After 20 or 30 minutes, the tofu sighs. It's denser, less watery. Dredge it in cornstarch, then drop it in hot oil. You'll see the edges blister, hear a delicate crack when your fork lifts a piece. Or blend tofu with garlic, lemon, and a splash of olive oil until it becomes a creamy spread that clings to pasta with a gentle coat, bringing a light, clean richness. Or cube it, toss it with a sticky, caramelized soy glaze, and throw it into a bowl with rice and pickles, a balance of sweet, salty, and the faint bite of acid. These experiences are tactile. They make tofu a vessel for flavor rather than a flavor itself. Tofu's relationship with culture matters too. When people see vegans eating tofu, they make meaning from that sight. But food isn't only symbolic, it's practical. For many, tofu's appeal is logistical. It stores well in the fridge, it's affordable, and it's predictable in performance. If you're planning dinner after a busy day, tofu reduces variables. That's a kind of kindness. Not glamorous, but sustainable. And the emotional weight, it's understated. Eating tofu is often about small acts of intention. Choosing a plant-based meal for health, for ethics, for variety. Those acts don't always have to be dramatic to matter. They quietly adjust the balance on your plate, and over time, those adjustments add up. Tofu is the dependable tool that lets you do that without fuss. So when someone makes a joke about tofu, consider what lies underneath: discomfort with change, a story about identity, a protective reflex. It's not always personal. Often it's collective. Tofu becomes a mirror that reflects anxiety about what counts as normal. But if we put that shadow to one side and get curious, the reality is gentler. Tofu invites experimentation. It rewards attention. It forgives mistakes. And it's democratic. From cheap supermarket blocks to hand-pressed artisan loaves, tofu is available at multiple price points and levels of craft. You can buy it, make it from scratch, bake with it, blend it, fry it. No single method owns it. That versatility is part of its longevity. In the kitchen, the work is small and specific. Press for texture, marinate for depth, use heat for contrast. Those simple moves change perception. Serve tofu well, and it becomes a dish people remember, not because it's tofu, but because it's satisfying and thoughtfully prepared. Food remembered is about balance, texture, temperature, seasoning, and timing. Tofu is a patient partner in that work. If you're someone who's never quite understood tofu, give it one honest moment. Find a dish where it has been treated with intention. Don't bring your assumptions. Let the texture speak first, then the seasoning. You might find yourself surprised not because tofu transformed into something else, but because it revealed itself. Tofu isn't trying to be the loudest thing on the plate. It's content to play support, to lend body and protein, to hold sauces and pick up smoke. That underlines something simple. Not all food needs to be a statement. Some foods are instruments, and in a noisy culinary world, that's a useful role. When trends roar, tofu sits steady. When someone demands a bold flavor, tofu answers by becoming bold. When you want comfort, it can be soft and warming. When you want crisp, it'll crackle. It's not a show-off. It's reliable. So consider changing the joke. Instead of treating tofu as a punchline, treat it as a starting point. Look at a block of tofu and see potential, a blank sheet of musical notation waiting for notes. It isn't bland in a deficit sense. It's neutral by design. Neutrality can be powerful. It invites collaboration. After thousands of years, tofu is still here, quiet, reliable, unbothered. That longevity says something. It works. Not because it demanded to, but because it fit needs and kept fitting them, quietly and consistently. It isn't a symbol for everything vegans are or aren't. It's a tool for making meals that are balanced and practical. If you cook with it, you know the small satisfactions, the crunch, the cream, the firm bite of a well-grilled slab. If you haven't, give it a real try, prepared with attention, and notice the difference. The point isn't to convert anyone, it's to open curiosity. Tofu waits. It waits for seasoning, for curiosity, for the patience to press and sear and taste. It waits for the moment when someone decides to stop joking long enough to try it. And when that happens, it quietly does what it has always done. It becomes food. So next time you pass that quiet rectangle in the fridge, think of it as a solution rather than a punchline. Think of balance, flexibility, and the small rituals that quietly change how you eat. Tofu won't shout, it won't demand, it will be there patient, adaptable, and ready to be invited into the meal.